Welcome to Race Classic TV. In this edition, we will be covering the Veteran Sports Car Club's Spring Start at Silverstone. Look at those clouds. The morning kicked off with some really grey skies. In fact, the day started with rain, making early qualifying pretty hairy, as you'll hear from the drivers later on. But from the looks of all the people walking around the paddock, it wasn't enough to put them off coming. We saw good crowds for a club event, but then the VSCC are celebrating their 75th anniversary this year. This Spring Start is a real jewel of an event. Not only are the participating cars special, but most of the racing is full on. Given an admission price of only £10, we'd say this is certainly an event you should put on your calendar to attend next year. And to boot, the VSCC's organisation was spot on. Everything ran to time, and the official programme was only £3. You can see from the paddock shots, interesting cars like Bugattis, Alphas and blower Bentleys were all there to be seen, and you could get right up amongst them, and the drivers were very friendly and quite happy to answer questions. The guys from Longstone were on site, regulars at these events, as well as the larger ones like the Le Mans Classics where we saw them last year. You can see they were pretty busy. People weren't rushing to put on wets, but it was the first VSCC racing event of the season, and time for new rubber. The Longstone fellas reckoned it was only one of the Napiers that actually went through a set of tyres per event. Vintage cars were to be seen just about everywhere around the grounds. The club had also organised a generous display area for those interested in bringing their non-racers along to this event. The display area was also open to the public, and the turnout was one of the largest we've seen at a club race event, covering Bentleys, BMWs, MGs, Rolls-Royces, Morgans and more. You can see from the footage that there were coupes, sedans and roadster models of all ages to see, and plenty of them, virtually all of them in immaculate condition. And while certainly many of those attending this event either owned a vintage car, bringing it along to the display areas you've just seen, or were out racing on the track with it, you don't have to be either to join the club. Be sure to visit their website for more details. We really wanted to bring you coverage of as many of the vintage cars in the display area as possible to allow you to judge how good this VSCC event was. Unfortunately, that meant walking with the camera, so apologies to those of you who suffer from seasickness. And don't adjust your screen, we meant this one to be a blurry shot. And here it is in focus. There was access to the pit lane during the event. It's qualifying time right now, and you can see cars coming in for tweaks to improve lap times as they try to achieve the best grid positions. Remember, many of these races are an intense 15 to 20 minutes of action, so starting towards the front of the pack can be key to a podium position. While we were in the pit garages, we managed to catch up with Peter Mann and John Ury and have a few words with them about how the morning's qualifying went. First, a few words with Peter.
Very slippery this morning, very greasy. The rain, I think, brought all the oil to the surface. Yes. So took it very gently. The car's going very well. I've had this one 16 years.
Right. Campaigned it over?
Campaigned it all 16 years, yeah. It's Fraser Nash Le Mans Mark II, right. Originally owned by a guy called Tony Crook, who raced it in Grand Prix in period, so it is a Grand Prix car.
And now a few words with John.
So this is a Cooper Bristol Type T24. It's quite an interesting history. It started life as a single-seater, right, with an Alta engine, owned by Tony Crook, who was the chairman of Bristol Cars at the time. So naturally, it had, the very best Bristol engine. Well, originally Alta, but he eventually put a Bristol engine in it, and they got the very best Bristol engine in, as you can see here, 6-port head and so on. And at the time, he was doing sports car races with the Fraser Nash, which you can see behind me here.
Right.
but he thought that actually a Cooper Bristol would be quite a good sports car. So he had this converted to it was called a 1.5-seater. It's since been widened a little bit, so you can definitely get 2 people in. And he used to tip up to race meetings, take the wings off, race it as a Grand Prix car, put the wings on, race it as a sports car, and he'd do about 6 races a meeting. 3 as a Grand Prix car, 3 as a sports car. Very successful. He wore number 6. This is the original paint. Sterling Moss was racing at the same time, and he always wore number 7. So today I'm driving it in the pre-61 Grand Prix car race as a Grand Prix car, and then we'll be putting the wings back on, and I'll be driving it later as a pre-58 sports car race. So I'm doing what Tony Crick used to do. It's a cracking grid that the VSCC's put together. Hopefully the weather will come right. I mean, it was horrible earlier on and horribly slippery.
How did that go this morning?
Awful. Terrible. I mean, we were reasonably quick, but compared to some others. But the track obviously has been run on several times in the last few days with some of these old cars, which tend to spread a bit more oil than perhaps modern cars. And then with the first rain, all the oil comes up, and it was just like an ice rink. So I had it well sideways several times, but we managed to keep it on the right bit of the track.
Later on, we caught up with Grant Clearwater, and we were able to ask him how he felt the morning's qualifying went.
Well, the run this morning I'd describe as treacherous. Yeah. The conditions were absolutely unbelievable. So we just cruised along, kept the car in shape, and we're actually starting off near the back of the grid.
Right.
This afternoon we don't intend staying there.
No.
We'd like to move quite a long way forward.
Okay. And how long do you have to do that in the race?
We've got 12 laps.
12 laps. Is that enough time, you think?
Possibly not, but we'll have a go. We'll do our best.
Absolutely. How long have you had the car?
We've had the car about 6 or 8 years.
Right, and campaigned it pretty regularly?
No, we haven't. This is the first race it's done since 1962.
Is it? Right,
yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll certainly have to keep a lookout for you on the track and see how it goes.
Yep. No,
how was it running this morning?
It's fine. Car's fine. We're just being pretty careful with it.
Right. No,
it means a lot to us.